Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host, Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co-author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Dan Handford. Dan is the managing director at PassiveInvestingcom. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Dan Handford. Dan, welcome.
I really appreciate you having me here. Looking forward to sharing with your audience.
Wonderful. Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, I have had many mentors over the years, and I have, back when I was, my background is actually before I got into real estate, which is what I'm doing now. I actually was a chiropractor, and I'm still a chiropractor now, still licensed to practice. But prior to actually getting that, I did a website design, web hosting, networking, and when I was doing that business, I designed a website for a chiropractor, got really interested in it, and ended up shutting that business down to go back to school and going straight into working on getting my doctorate in chiropractic. And then right out of school, started my first clinic and quickly grew that to the point where I could hire on other associates to work for me, and then hired on some medical physicians to integrate our clinics, and then also decided to cut the chiropractic out to focus on the niche of medicine that we were starting to really grow in our community, which is non-surgical orthopedics and sports medicine, including a lot of alternative treatments like prolotherapy, PRP, and stem cell treatments for orthopedic conditions, and ended up growing that from one clinic to 4 clinics. And we have one here in Columbia, South Carolina, one in Greenville, Charleston, and North Augusta, South Carolina. And then the revenues from that is what caused us to want to create this private equity real estate company, PassiveInvestingcom. And it was mainly from a tax perspective, because we were, paying a lot of money in taxes to the government, and wanted to find a way to be able to still impact the community by buying in real estate and improving the economy and the different communities that we were buying, and then also be able to have the tax advantages at the same time.
Yeah, one word called depreciations,
Yep.
Yeah. So what are the top 3 mistakes to avoid when it comes to growing your business?
Sure. So, in the private equity real estate world, when it comes to apartment syndication, which is kind of where we lie, we also do some self-storage syndication as well, is there's 3 kind of things that you're going to always need, right? You're going to always need a deal flow, right? You always need deal flow coming in, and you always need investors coming in. And so, a lot of times the mistakes that are happening are, people who are just finding investors and they forget about the deals, right? So they get all these investors, but they have no deals to present to them. And then you also have the other way around, where you have too many deals and not enough investors. And then, so the first 2 things you're going to need is you're going to need those investors, and you're going to need the deal flow. And then the third thing is hire your team early, right? Don't wait to hire your team. That's one of the mistakes that, I made early in my career, is trying to do everything myself, because I feel like I can do everything better than everybody else. And it's a mental flaw that I have, and a mindset shift that I had to make to be able to see the hockey stick growth in my businesses, is being able to hire other people to be able to do the tasks that I really didn't need to be doing, and they end up doing them better than me. Right. And the mindset that I had to put myself in is that if I could hire somebody else to do the tasks that I don't need to be doing, and they can do it at 80-85% as well as I can do, then I can step away and go do other things, which is kind of the growth and the visionary aspect of the business.
So that's 1 mistake to avoid. Try thinking yourself 2 more, please.
No, those were 3, Siddique. So the 3 that I mentioned were not looking for deals soon enough. And then the second one was not looking for equity soon enough, not looking for the investor's money. And then the third one is not actually hiring your team soon enough. So those are the 3 that I was mentioning.
Wonderful. What's your greatest failure story? What did you learn, and how did you recover from it?
Sure. So I would say the biggest failure is probably back in my when I first was starting the clinics, and when we were scaling from 1 to the multiple locations. We actually went from the 1 location, and we opened up a second location. And when we opened up that second location, we took our eye off the numbers of the first clinic, right? And those numbers started to tank and started to dive, and we didn't notice it until about 3 or 4 months later. And it was a mistake that we made, right? We put so much time and energy and effort and took the whole management team from the one main clinic and put it into the new clinic to hopefully make that clinic successful, right? And we just took our eyes off of the original, clinic, and it started to tank. And so what we had to do was we had to pivot, we had to shift, we had to make some decisions to, put some of the KPIs in place to monitor the numbers, because I'm a big believer in that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so we normally, when it was just one clinic, we could look at the numbers on a monthly basis or even on a quarterly basis, and it was fine. But now when we have multiple locations, every single week we're looking at numbers, right? We want to be able to make those pivots and those changes sooner. And it allowed us to be able to kind of put those systems in place and allow us to grow from those one clinic to two clinics and now 3 and 4 locations.
What are your top 3 success secrets that others can model from?
Well, one of them that I mentioned, actually 2 of them, I guess, are ones that I've already mentioned earlier. One is, learning the art of delegation, right? Being able to find tasks that you're doing and hire other people to do those tasks. And as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's hard because we do have that mental kind of mindset that we can do things better than everybody else. And we try to, right? We try to do everything better than everybody else. And it's just not sustainable for the long term and allowing for growth and expansion. And so being able to hire a good team to be able to support you is definitely the number one thing for me. The second is being able to set certain metrics in place and those KPIs to make sure that you're monitoring, your numbers, because if you don't monitor your numbers, you don't really know where you're going, right? If you need to get from California to New York and you're not using a map, it's going to be hard as well, right? So you need to be able to make sure that you know where you're going and be able to monitor those numbers and make sure that you can actually get there. And then the third one that I would say is probably a success secret is really being able to have a good mentor on your team, right? Somebody that you can actually reach out to, whether it be a one-on-one mentor or maybe it's a group, like a mastermind that you're a part of. I've been a part of multiple types of coaching or mentoring programs along the way. And it's because a lot of times in the entrepreneurial world, we are on an island, right? It's hard for us to really have a lot of, conversations with people that don't have another business or don't have the kind of opportunity that we're working on at that moment. And being able to have a mastermind or a group of people or a mentor that you can actually go and talk to and bounce ideas off of, it really is impactful and can actually help kind of grow your business. Because so many times as entrepreneurs, we try to focus too much on working in the business. We don't actually take time to actually work on it. And that's another key point too.
That brings me a follow-up question. Great point you mentioned. What's the difference in between working in the business or on the business? In and on is only one character difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where so many times the technician is the one inside the business that is working in it all the time. And the technician style entrepreneur is the one that probably has the hardest time working on it, right? Because they're so used to being in the trenches of actually working in the business, going in, putting out fires, being in the front lines, that they can't stop and go, wait a minute, I need to be the general. I need to be the person who's actually overseeing and monitoring things and actually making changes and pivots and being able to cast that vision. And to me, being able to, go to an outside location away from the business, outside of the city, and actually go to a meeting with another business owner, or, I have a good friend of mine out of Florida that I've been meeting with for, probably the last 7 or 8 years. We meet 3 or 4 times a year, even now. And we go away and we just focus on working on our businesses. And we'll usually kind of tie that with a conference or an event. So we're actually doing something else at the same time, but it allows us to be able to kind of get those creative juices flowing and bounce ideas off of each other. And sometimes they're bad ideas, right? That we just don't want to do. But unless you have something that you can bounce those ideas off of, you never really know.
No, wonderful, amazing answer. We are about to get into lightning round. That means quick question and a quick answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for my family and my relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
How young are you?
I am 38.
Dan, you are not 38. You are 18 years old with 20 years experience.
That's a good answer.
What you want to do when you grow up?
What do I want to do when I grow up? I would say I want to help many, many people. And I'm actually started a foundation, a nonprofit foundation to actually help with that goal as I continue to grow up, and being able to support local small to mid-sized Christian schools to be able to create some form of a foundation for them to be able to help kind of sustain them for the future.
How do you overcome a challenge life throws at you?
I use a lot of a lot of the challenges that I have. My wife and I have conversations daily about those things, and of course, we also take them to prayer as well.
How do you start your day?
With coffee with my wife.
What is the advice you will give to younger yourself?
I would say being able to go back to what I said earlier, delegation. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that kind of held me back in my younger years, is trying to do everything myself and feeling like I didn't want to hire somebody else, but being able to be able to delegate is definitely something that I would tell my younger self to make sure I did sooner rather than later.
Once you have a revenue generating idea, how do you convince your significant other?
Well, it's interesting because, when I have those ideas, I bounce the idea off of my significant other, which is my spouse, my wife. And a lot of times they're not very good ideas, and she picks them apart and she's like, wait a minute, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? And so it's great to have somebody like her to be able to bounce them off of. But there's also, opportunities of, being able to, I'm starting a business right now that, I told her, I said, if we spend a little bit of money on this business, it's not the end of the world. We're not going to lose our shirt. Let's try it and see. You never make money without risk.
That'll help me to ask a significant other question in different words. When she says no to you, or your significant other says no to the idea, you went ahead anyway. How do you feel?
Well, I don't think I've ever actually really done that. So it's always been a mutual conversation. So, I mean, it's one of those things where we both try to discuss the things that we have on our minds, and, make sure that we're all on the same page. Cause I'll tell you, I've even in myself, when my intuition tells me that I shouldn't do something, and when I do it anyway, a lot of times it comes back to bite me. So I've learned over the years that if we're not on the same page, it's probably not a good thing to move forward with.
What's the impactful book you have read, and what did you learn from it?
So I would say there's this book right here, actually, from Joe Fairless, called The Best Ever Apartment Syndication Book. It's a great book on learning about apartment syndication and how to start your own private equity real estate company acquiring apartments. It's a really nice detailed book. I think it's over 250 pages or so. Yeah, it's actually 400 and something pages, 420 something pages long. And one of the biggest things I learned in here is about creating an authority platform to really be able to catapult yourself into a position of authority that allows people to feel like you're a credible source and a credible resource, which allows you to be able to get them to know, like, and trust you, and also allows you to be able to raise significant amounts of capital from investors.
Why being impactful is important to you?
Well, I would say that, there's a lot of people that have been impactful to me over the years, and being able to be impactful to other people allows you to be able to, get to the point of giving back, right? So for me, there's a lot of times where I'll have conversations with people, or I'll give them, advice. And I don't actually have a paid coaching program or anything like that, because number one, I don't need that. I don't have the time for it, and I don't really need the money. And so I don't want to take more time away from my family doing something that honestly I really don't like doing, as far as being paid to kind of do those kinds of programs where I'm having to get on phone calls every single week or every single month or whatever. And so I've chosen not to do those things, and it's allowed me more flexibility and freedom with my family, but still being able to have phone calls. And I had 2 of them actually this morning before I jumped on with you, and just, giving advice to other people and having conversations with them, and kind of being able to be impactful to them and their growth as well.
Who is your mentor, and what's the impact?
So I have multiple mentors over the years. One that I would say is Dan Kennedy. He is a kind of grassroots marketer, if you will. If you have a chance to read any of his material, books or anything, or even purchasing his magnetic marketing program, it's a phenomenal program. To me, it's helped me perfect and get to the point of having a great marketing system in place to be able to kind of keep a fence around your customers, or your herd, is what he says, and it has allowed me to really grow my businesses that way.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Well, I want to be remembered to be, first off, to be a follower of Jesus Christ, but also to be able to be a good father and good husband to my family, and then also to be a upstanding businessman, right? Because you can be a businessman, but be kind of a shrewd and not so popular, a businessman where people just think of you as being kind of sleazy. And there's a lot of ways that I could have made money over the years that could have made me a quick buck, but it would not have been the most ethical way to do things, right? And so there are certain things that the decisions that we make that don't allow us to be able to make as much money, but it allows us to be able to still sleep well at night. It's called the SWAN principle: sleep well at night, right? And so being able to sleep well at night is more important to me, and as well as my reputation, because there's one thing you can't get back, right? Or it's hard to recover from is a bad reputation. And it's also one of those things that I know that once I'm gone and out of this world, I know that my family, my kids, my grandkids will continue to follow me, and they'll be watching this video right here, right? And they'll be able to see some of the things that daddy and granddaddy did over the years, and I want them to be proud of that as well.
Who is your ideal client?
So we primarily work with accredited investors. So accredited investor is somebody who has at least $1 million of net worth, not including their primary residence, or they have $200,000 if they're single, or $300,000 of annual income if they're married. And they've had that for the last 2 years, and they have a reasonable expectation for that to continue in the current year. And so that's kind of the ideal client that we're looking for. And so there you go.
How can we support you?
Well, obviously, we're always looking for new investors. So if you want to go to the website, PassiveInvesting.com, right there on the screen, you can do that. Just PassiveInvesting.com. And on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a blue button that says Join the Passive Investor Club. You can click that button, fill out the form, and one of our team members will reach out to you, discuss your investment goals, and see if our group is the right fit for you. And if for some reason we're not, we can always turn you in the right direction to try to find maybe a different option for you to be able to utilize the resources that we have available to tell you what might be the next best option for you. So we're not the right fit for everybody, but if you're interested, I'd love you to jump over there and reach out to us. And if you want to connect with me further or follow me further, you can also go to linkwithdan.com. That'll bring you straight to my LinkedIn profile page, and you can just connect with me there. Let's linkwithdan.com.
We are about to wrap up. I'd like to have a few words about your today's guest experience on the show. And here's my question. What would you say about your today's guest experience on the show?
It's been good. So rapid fire questions, very straightforward, no fluff. It's been great.
What would you say as a final word?
Learn the art of delegation and master the art of marketing.
Delegation. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing your wisdom with us today. On the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team, we really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.